The Sunset Project is my absolute favorite ball python breeding project right now. And if you are considering getting a sunset ball python and you're trying to do your initial research, I think it is so important to understand what goes well with sunset, what doesn't really go well with sunset, what's already been done, and what is wide open. So that way, if you get into the Sunset Project right now in the spring/summer of 2024, you can set yourself up in a way that you can make a mark and do things that nobody else has ever done before. Anyways, my name's Steven with Leviathan Snakes, and this week we're talking about sunsets. To start off, we want to talk about a single gene sunset. So, a single gene sunset is characterized by these rusty reds, oranges, burgundy colors, as well as, depending on the exact combo, maybe some yellows, gold colors coming through in the alien heads and along the dorsal. Now, I personally think that sunset animals are some of the most beautiful reptiles in the entire hobby. But there is a criticism on the sunset morphs specifically in that the adults don't really age well. So I'm going to throw up some B-roll of a baby sunset female that we had produced a couple years back, and then I'm going to throw up some B-roll of her now. So I do think that the baby version, this girl's named Espion, I do think that the baby version looks better than the adult version, but I don't think that the adult version looks bad. In fact, I think that if you are looking at a sunset ball python, I personally think that it ages about on par with most other morphs in the ball python breeding hobby. I think that if you look at pastel, if you look at clown, if you look at pied, if you look at animals like that from their baby versions to their adult versions, it's very, very common that the baby versions look better. And I think that sunset fits that kind of mold pretty well. Now, I think that the reason why so much criticism got put on the Sunset Project because of this is because it was really gaining popularity when DG was the hottest morph that everybody was using as the standard. And DG's main selling point is that the babies and the adults look almost identical, that they age really, really well, that they hold their contrast really, really well, they hold their colors really, really well. And because of this, because DG was so popular at the time, the people who love DG, because DG is an amazing morph and it's a great enhancer morph, were comparing DG's strengths to, in this specific situation, Sunset's weaknesses. And I don't think that it was a really fair comparison, because when we are looking at other animals, other combos, you almost never look at the single gene form as the entire basis for that project. And because the ball python breeding hobby, at least right now, is really focused on combining different genetics, different morphs together in order to create incredible phenotypes in the offspring, Sunset needs to have other genes in it to really unlock the potential. So that's what we're going to be talking about next. So there have been quite a bit of amazing sunset combos that have been hit so far, but I want to show off some of the few that we have hit here at Leviathan Snakes. So this very first one that I want to show off is the Red Stripe Sunset. And while I believe Miguel from Always Evolving Pythons had hit the first Cinnamon Red Stripe Sunset, this girl, Red Stripe Sunset, is the very first just Red Stripe Sunset that has ever been produced. And we sent in her shed to RGI just to confirm, and she did come back as heterozygous for Red Stripe, and she's obviously homozygous for Sunset. So I think that when you are comparing this, the Red Stripe Sunset, to the regular Sunset, there's a very slight difference in the color, like a slight, I don't know, maybe richer color in the Red Stripe Sunset. But I think that there's some really cool pattern that's coming in specifically on the dorsal compared to other sunsets. And I do think that it's really, really important to highlight this right now, is that Sunset is incredibly polymorphic. So I'm also going to throw up on the screen some B-roll of two single gene sunsets. They're both siblings. The pairing for this was a sunset to a normal het sunset. There was no other genes in it. And you can see how wildly different two different examples of just a single gene sunset can look. But the reason why I say this is that if you are not really experienced in all of the different sunset combos, I think that it's very common for people to hatch out just single gene sunsets and mis-ID them. They might think that there's an extra gene in that animal, whether it's a dark gene or a light gene or something like that, because sunsets are so polymorphic. So this is one of the main reasons why we tested this girl with Rare Genetics Incorporated, because we wanted to be 100% sure on her ID before we sold her, which she's actually sold already. And a huge shout out because she is doing incredible. Kimberly, I'm so freaking excited that you got this girl. Taking it up one more step from this, I want to show off the Red Stripe Extreme Gene Sunset. So this girl is a product from the collaborative breeding project that we did with Shane from Small Town Exotics. And again, very similar to the Red Stripe Sunset. And there's a chance that this girl is just a Red Stripe Sunset. Because again, sunset is a polymorphic trait. So it's possible that there's just slight differences and maybe she has a little bit more contrast. But because Extreme Gene was in the pairing, we're pretty sure because her contrast is quite a bit different than just the single gene sunset that we had produced previously. This girl is named Xena after her mom, because again, the mom was from Shane and we don't have her here anymore. But I think that she is incredible, she is stunning. I am so freaking excited about what Red Stripe can do in the Sunset project. Now, this next one is wild. Probably one of my favorite sunset combos that we have hit so far, and this boy has sold already to John Feely, and I, again, am super freaking excited. I cannot wait to see what you do with him. So, this boy is a pastel Red Stripe, Yellow Belly, possible Extreme Gene Sunset, and while there's not a test for Extreme Gene Sunset right now, I personally do think that he's Extreme Gene, and he is wild. I love his pattern. I love the definition of his pattern of his alien heads throughout his body. I love the orange-yellow blushing coming through. I think that this specific combo is one of my favorites. It's definitely, in my opinion at least, the best pastel sunset combo that has been hit so far, and I love this boy. Next one. So this next boy is actually my favorite sunset that we have produced here at Leviathan Snakes, and at first I was for sure that he was the Red Stripe Yellow Belly sunset. And then after he hatched and after he came out, I thought that his pattern kind of reminded me of the leopard sunset, which his mom is actually the first leopard sunset that was ever produced, and she was produced by Brad Boa and Brock Wagner Reptiles. So anyways, this boy, I was for sure he was the Red Stripe Yellow Belly sunset because of just how bright he was. But as he shed out, he kind of darkened up a bit, and we sent his shed into RGI. We did a full panel on him, and he came back as heterozygous for leopard, heterozygous for yellow belly, but he tested negative for Red Stripe. So I was super disappointed, but I still think that he is insane. I love the brightness that Yellow Belly is bringing in, and then the darkness of leopard is adding to the contrast, and it's making a really cool pattern on this boy, and I think that he is just going to age fantastically. Anyways, with this though, because he wasn't Red Stripe, we actually already sold this boy as well, and we are just waiting to ship him out. But I cannot wait to see what the actual Red Stripe Yellow Belly Leopard sunset looks like. It is going to be insane. Another gene that I think goes so well into sunset is fire. And what fire does is it lightens up the entire animal. So while you aren't getting those super deep reds, I think that you are getting some beautiful oranges, some beautiful yellows in the fire sunsets. And the best thing about fire sunsets is that they continually get brighter and brighter as they age. So you don't have to worry about any darkening, any browning out when you have something like fire or vanilla or disco in your sunset animals. So this girl specifically, she is a fire sunset, and she is also 100% het for hypo, and she was produced by our amazing friends over at Brock Wagner Reptiles. I know we've talked a lot about incomplete dominant genes, but I do want to talk about multi-recessive projects because that really is the future and really the present of the ball python breeding hobby. And there have been several multi-recessive sunset combos hit so far, and a lot of them are just incredible. So some of my favorites are the Sunset Clown, and I think that the Sunset Clown project is the most developed of all of the multi-recessive sunset projects, with lots of different Sunset Clown combos already being hit. So there has been the Sunset Clown, there has been the Inchy Sunset Clown hit by Always Evolving Pythons, there's been the Spot Nose Sunset Clown hit by Canova, there's the Leopard Sunset Clown hit by Canova, and there are other Sunset Clown combos already, but I don't know fully what all has been released publicly, so I don't want to talk about any other ones right now, just in case I am giving a spoiler. So, beyond Sunset Clown, there are some absolutely insane stuff that you can do with enhancer genes rather than pattern genes. And I think that the two best, I would say, enhancer genes for this are Hypo and Desert Ghost. So I personally think that just the Hypo Sunset looks better than the Desert Ghost Sunset, because the Hypo Sunset really locks in the colors and it maintains those oranges that I love so much about the Sunset project. The Desert Ghost Sunset, in my opinion, has a bit better contrast, but it shifts the whole color spectrum more towards the yellow kind of hues, while I really want those oranges and reds in the Sunset project. Now, Canova recently, maybe a year-ish ago, hit the Hypo Sunset DG, and with the Hypo and DG in there together, you get back to those oranges. You almost get like a bubblegum pink color. I've seen this animal in person, and it is insane. In fact, I actually saw it like a week or so ago when we were down there shooting last week's video, and it looks just as good right now at a year old as it did when it first hatched out of the egg, and it is one of the best looking sunset animals that I have ever seen. So I think that Hypo and Desert Ghost are amazing avenues to go down when you are trying to work the Sunset project and you specifically want to lock in those sunset oranges, those sunset reds throughout the entire animal's life. Going a little bit different direction, where maybe you could kind of be looking at this as enhancer morph, but in my opinion, it's really a color morph on its own, and the Ultramel Sunset is probably the best looking sunset combo that has been hit so far when you're looking at it only from the lens of color. Because Ultramels hold their color perfectly throughout their life, and when you put the Sunset Ultramel together, you get the exact same benefits, but you still get those really bright oranges. The only thing that I wouldn't say is a weakness of this is that you don't get a whole lot of contrast, at least right now, but only the Sunset Ultramel has hit. No other genes have been worked into that project yet, and I think if you can get some dark morphs into that, whether that is Blackhead or Mahogany or anything like that, I think that this specific project, the Sunset Ultramel, is going to be one of the best projects that you can potentially pursue if you're getting into Sunset right now. All this said, I personally think that the absolute best double recessive sunset project that has been hit so far is the Sunset Puzzle. And this was hit by Brock Wagner Reptiles, and it is absolutely insane. You get all of the amazing pattern aspects of Puzzle. You get all of the amazing colors of Sunset, and for some reason, when you combine these two morphs together, it brightens the animal and it locks in those colors. Again, I've seen this boy as he's aged, and he has aged phenomenally. He is hands down the best sunset combo that has been made so far, and I think that if you're in the Puzzle project, Sunset is a must-have, and if you're in the Sunset project, Puzzle is a must-have direction to go. And the fact that you can layer in both of these genes and get the best of both worlds means that there is so much room for this specific project. So, going towards the future, there is a lot of stuff that hasn't been done with Sunset yet. I am really excited to see the first super asphalt sunsets, freeway sunsets, super gravel sunsets, highway sunsets, because those haven't been done yet, and I think that those specific projects, those specific combos are going to be mind-blowing. And there are other double recessive projects that, again, haven't been hit yet. The G-Stripe sunset hasn't been hit yet. The Tri-Stripe sunset hasn't been hit yet. And given how amazing the Ultramel sunset has been, I think that the Monarch sunset is going to be even better. I think that, again, I love Ultramel, I love Monarch, but Monarch has better contrast than Ultramel does, and in my opinion, I think that the contrast is one of the weak areas with sunset. So if you can bring in a morph that helps out contrast and you can get a more defined sunset pattern, but if you get the color palette of the Sunset Ultramels with Monarch, I think that that is going to be a must-have direction. That is going to be such a strong way to go about building out the Sunset project, and as far as I'm aware of, nobody's doing that yet. I cannot wait to see the Monarch Sunset. While multi-recessives are the future, there are still a lot of incomplete dominant genes that haven't been worked into Sunset yet that I'm really excited to see what they're going to look like. So some of these are Blackhead. The Blackhead Sunset hasn't been made yet, and I cannot wait. I believe Brandon Nixon, he already has hets that are growing up, and I think he's probably going to be the first one to hit the Blackhead Sunset, and I cannot wait to see what it looks like. The Bongo Sunset hasn't been hit yet, the Chocolate Sunset hasn't been hit yet, and probably when it comes to incomplete dominant genes, the ones that I am most excited about is probably the Acid, Confusion, Static, whatever you want to call it, but that Sunset. I think that that is going to be wild. I cannot wait to see what the Confusion Sunset looks like. There's so many absolutely amazing other directions that people can do with the Sunset project, and there's so much that hasn't even been touched that I cannot wait to see what it looks like. So if you are getting into the Sunset project right now, I cannot recommend it enough, and while I have shown off a lot of different Sunset animals, we are actually pretty much sold out of Sunset stuff. We have a one leopard yellow belly het Sunset male on Morph Market right now, so if you're trying to get into it, I highly recommend going to Brock Wagner Reptiles, Brad Boa Reptiles, WHS, Brandon Nixon, Corey DeLong, Canova, Miguel from Always Evolving Pythons. There is amazing people working the Sunset project, and they are producing absolutely incredible animals. So we hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next week.